Does choosing a gimbal feel a little bit like this?
We need an answer.
I gave you one, but you keep making me doubt myself.
What is your final answer? That's incorrect, I'm sorry.
There are so many options to choose from nowadays, it's hard to know which one's best for your needs. But don't worry, we're here to help. The main thing to consider when choosing a gimbal is what camera and lens combo you'll be using. It's good to think a little bit into the future too, so you don't make your new gimbal redundant after buying that new wide aperture smooth bokeh f1.2 lens that you've been dreaming about. Let's start small and build our way up. If you're using a pretty small setup and you're using a compact camera or small mirrorless camera with a small prime lens, then you should be looking at the Crane M2S. Small mirrorless cameras such as the Canon M50 and other cameras alike, as well as the compact cameras such as the Canon PowerShot or Sony RX range, are what this gimbal is made for. It can even take a smartphone for you mobile cinema photographers out there. The Crane M2S charges via a USB-C cable, so you don't need external batteries. It charges to full in just about 100 minutes and can last up to 10 hours. It even comes with a built-in ultra-bright LED that is pushing about 1000 lumens within 1.5 meters. Stepping it up a bit, if you have a few lenses that you plan to use and they vary in size and weight, but you're still using a small mirrorless camera such as the Lumix GH6, a Fuji X-T4, Olympus OM1 or something like the Sony a6000 series, then you should be looking at the Crane M3. This is basically the bigger brother to the Crane M2S with a very similar feature and design. It is made for slightly bigger mirrorless cameras and interchangeable lens cameras, but still keeps your whole setup compact. It also features the same LED light, USB-C charging and a touchscreen display. Next we move on to some bigger setups, but still in the mirrorless and DSLR range and size. If you're using a large and full frame camera such as the Canon R5, a Lumix S1H, Nikon Z9 or the legendary but dinosaur Canon 1DX series, then you should be looking at something like the Crane 2S. This is a much bigger gimbal than the M2S and the M3 and has a much larger payload. The physical space for a camera on this gimbal is bigger as well, making it easier to balance longer lenses and wider camera bodies on it. It can even take some small cinema cameras such as the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema range, the Red Komodo and the Sony FX3. And for all you Instagram and TikTok content creators, it even has a vertical mounting option. The Crane 2S is the competitor to the DJI RS2 or RS3 Pro. Both being a single-handed gimbal, these have very similar physical camera spaces and payloads, both being able to take large mirrorless cameras and some small cinema cameras. Moving on to some large cinema cameras, if you're using something like the Sony FX9, Canon C200 or C300, Blackmagic Ursa or even some camcorders, then you should be looking at the Crane 3S. And as you can see, it's a big boy. It even has a briefcase handle which is designed to make the operation of the gimbal easier and more pleasant for holding over long periods of time. It also features an extended axis arm for those larger and taller cameras which you can swap out with the included tools. With a tested payload of 14.3 pounds or 6.5 kgs, this gimbal can take a wide range of large cameras and bigger lens setups. Even if you are using a mirrorless camera but want to use a big lens on it such as a 70-200 or something like the Sigma 105mm, then you'll be best suited with the Crane 3S. A side note, the heaviest camera I've been able to load onto this Crane 3S is the Sony f5. This gimbal can also be used in conjunction with other balancing or supporting brackets such as the Easy Rig, Ready Rigs or the Tilter Armor Man. Moving on from the Crane series, Zion also makes the Weeble range. These take after the Crane 3S in shape and design, but are smaller and designed for the mirrorless cameras. If you're using a setup like the Sony a7 IV with a 24-70mm lens or something similar in size, then you should be looking at something like the Weeble S. This is a very basic gimbal and really affordable. The Sony a7 bodies with the 24-70 GM lens is probably the max that I would put on this, as anything bigger than that and the gimbal will start to shake and struggle to hold the camera when being used in unordinary or tricky situations. The Weeble S is also cheaper than the Crane M3 and offers a higher payload, so do keep that in mind when you are looking at something to buy. However, you can't really mount a phone onto this and you won't get the bright LED or the touchscreen operability. It's good to keep the payload in mind when choosing a gimbal, but don't max it out. You want to keep a bit of breathing room so you can allow for zoom in or out on lenses, tricky gimbal positions and moves, and as mentioned earlier, for the ability to upgrade your gimbal when you upgrade your kit in the future. Last but certainly not least, if you are shooting with full frame bodies or smaller bodies with bigger lenses and want a comfortable long-term shooting gimbal, you should be considering something like the Crane 2. This also has a briefcase handle like the Crane 3S does, but is more suited to cameras used on the Crane 2S. I wouldn't put any cinema cameras on this as you can with the Crane 2S, but you can definitely comfortably fit any APS-C and full frame camera bodies on it with decent sized lenses, primes or zooms. Cameras such as the Canon R506, Sony a7S III, a7 IV, Fuji X-H6 and others alike are made for this gimbal. The Weebill 2 also has a built-in screen which, when paired with the wireless transmitter, can be used as a monitoring screen for your camera. I hope this gives you a bit of a better idea of what to look for when choosing a gimbal and what things to consider. Just remember to keep in mind what the future holds for you and your kit. You don't want to end up buying a new gimbal every single time you need to upgrade your kit. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. All of these gimbals are available in different kits that offer extra accessories, so if you are keen to find out more, head over to our website or come visit us in store and we'll be happy to help. Alright, well that's all for this video, we'll catch you at the next one.